My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people.
We are here for the Meet Cool People show. And we have the pleasure of having this awesome room and this awesome equipment and this awesome dude sitting back there, G, who is helping us record all this stuff at the Badass Business Summit. So this is not the normal show. Like normally when we do these, I am behind my computer and I got the purple green screen and all that kind of stuff. And I have a cool script in front of me. So we're just going to wing it and have a good time. We're going to wing it.
Well, I feel extra special now for this. It's awesome. And I like the in-person thing. It's so much, much more fun.
Well, and
that we're able to do it.
So as we start with this, and yes, I will introduce who you are. Right now we're just having a good conversation and this is going to be the coolest show. So you and I actually met through Success Champions events, and we've ran into each other several times.
Yep.
And it's hilarious because that is the best part of networking in general for me, is just meeting cool people, which is the whole point of the show.
Love it.
And so because of that, it's like we've been at probably at least 5 or 6 events, and then it wasn't until, 2-3 weeks ago when we actually talked. Like had a real conversation, and that's when we first got to actually really know each other. It's like, oh, okay, this is what we do, and this is who we are. And I was like, all right. So that's where it came from. So I'm here with Mr. Mike Nasche.
Mike Nasche.
Yes.
Person.
So tell everybody a bit about who you are, a little bit of, what do you do, and what kind of cool stuff are you working on?
Wow. Man.
And I know that's a whole can of worms, so
it is.
I'll tell you when to shush.
When to shush. Right now, I'm a business consultant and coach for entrepreneurs. I like to say I'm a business consultant and coach for entrepreneurs with ADHD.
Okay.
But that's also just kind of a joke
because we all have ADHD.
Well, I've heard some stats. I don't know, how accurate they are, but you're like 300 times more likely to be an entrepreneur if you're neurodivergent.
Oh, yeah,
which includes ADD, ADHD, OCD, autism, Asperger's, like all these things. But I think a lot of it is just the structure that exists in corporate or working for somebody else feels very constricting to a lot of folks like that. That makes them, I'll try it on my own. And so it's like saying I'm a pediatric dentist for kids who like candy. Just like it's the most of them. So,
right.
But it gets a fun conversation starter for that when I say coach and for entrepreneurs who have ADHD.
Okay. So what kind of clients are you working with? Because there's a lot of small businesses, very wide topic.
Yeah, I like medium businesses.
Medium?
Medium.
Okay.
No. We jump right from that to now talking about what kind of clients I like. If they are open-minded, humble, and hungry, those are my clients.
Okay.
When you talk about the avatar, a lot of people like to measure companies with top-line revenue. I think a lot of times that's a garbage measurement for a lot of reasons.
Right. Yeah.
But it makes sense. Everybody kind of understands what comes with a certain revenue size of business. But for me, usually everybody about $500,000 is usually big enough to be able to afford some of the things. So basically just profitable. But the 7-figure businesses are usually my favorite when it comes to the value that I think I can bring to them for scalability, for maybe where they are in their business. But none of that stuff really matters. It's humble, hungry, open-minded. And sometimes I have consulting things that they need. Other times it's definitely more on the coaching side.
Okay, nice. Well, and that's always a fun thing because you look at that coaching, consulting back and forth of like, where do you fall in? And I know I run into that because I always say, like I actually more recently, probably about 4 months ago, I came up with the term, I actually have a consulting program in a coaching package. And because it is more consulting, but it's packaged in a way more of like a coaching program. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense now that I figured that out. But we do go back and forth in those kind of arenas. Now, for you, is there any kind of industry specific or anything that you found?
I'm pretty industry agnostic. There are certain things that certain industries I'll be able to have more of an impact. I feel like I can't help the people that are more like me as much, which sucks because I really like
Right.
visiting the coaches and the consultants. But some of the more traditional businesses that have higher overhead, some of the products and stuff that I have are better fit for them. But no, it's really more of a personality thing. I like working with the owners that there's some kind of vibe. I'm a big fan of your vibe attracts your tribe. And so the people who I want to work with, we have at least something cool overlap in common. There's some way that we can relate. And my favorite clients often think they have a business problem that requires a consulting solution. But after a little bit of time spent with them, we realize it might be a mindset problem.
Right.
Or maybe not a problem, but it's like there's a blind spot.
Right.
And that's where the coaching comes in, which I love. But a lot of those people aren't looking for coaching, or they think coaching might be a little too woo-woo for them. And so we lead with the consulting thing, and it helps because of my background, with business, entrepreneurship, with the MBA. I can speak their language in a way that, we're talking data and, that type of stuff. And then I kind of hit them with maybe actually the struggle here is belief.
Yeah.
Well, and it's wild what happens then.
Yeah, and I like the way you put that, because a lot of times people look at one piece or the other piece. They're looking at one side of it, and they think that's where the problem is, where a lot of times it is exactly the opposite. I know, so I have in the past, I've worked with a lot of coaches. For 15 years, my primary niche was the speaker coach industry. And now I'm delving more into what I like to say real businesses. But they go to the coaching side. They go to, it's always a mindset things. And it's not always a mindset. Sometimes you're missing a system. You're missing a process that you need to do. And so it's interesting that you said that, because you're looking at the opposite side moving over. And I think that's where it's cool, where there's people like you and I that can have a bit more of that holistic side to it. It's like, okay, there's two pieces to look at, and we need to look at both sides to make sure where is the actual root of the problem.
I believe in almost all cases, the root of the problem is going to be within yourself, mindset type stuff. Yeah. But when you're looking at a business and you have the data to say, oh, well, there's a conversion rate between, you have no problem making appointments, but you're not closing any deals. Okay, well, yes, the problem is, it's easy to see. And so in that case, yes, we're able to make data-driven decisions. We're able to focus on those things.
Right.
But for most of the people that I've been working with, there really is something. They could figure out any of those things without me, is what I mean. So if we've got a problem to solve, I feel like most cases it's going to be more internal with what they believe about themselves, what they're capable of, limitations, self-limiting beliefs, all of those things.
Yeah.
And that's where I can nerd out.
Well, and I think you just said something that I think is really important with that they can figure it out on their own. But I think that's where the coaching side comes in, because they don't trust themselves to figure it out on their own. They want somebody else to tell them.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of times human beings tend to do that. It's like they know the answer, but they need somebody else to validate it for them before they're willing to take that step, because they don't quite trust themselves.
There's some pretty cool coaching questions that people can ask that help get your client around that. It's like, all right, I bet your intuition is pretty good. If you had to guess right now, what do you think the answer would be?
Right.
And they'll have an answer.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, let's dig a little more into that. So when I say that's usually one of the biggest differences between coaching and consulting. Consulting is, I know the answer because I'm an expert. Let me tell you, this is the consulting answer.
Right.
Raise your prices.
Right.
Expand into a new, market. The coaching is helping them realize that they have the answer within them, recognize some blind spots, and help them along the way. So I love blending the two together.
Right.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I like the way you're doing that, and I do a lot of the same thing, because I think you have to do that, because sometimes that's one thing from a coaching standpoint that drives me nuts, is the coach coming back and always coming back with that question. It's like, well, if you had to guess what the answer is, what would you guess it is? It's like, no, that's what I'm paying you for. Help me find the answer. And I've had that. I've had people come back to me and I didn't have an answer. And I was like, okay, but that's what I'm looking for. And that's where I think the consulting coaching combo is the magic bullet for it, because you see both sides of the picture.
As long as the person who's doing the coaching and consulting understands that they are two different things.
Yeah.
And how to go between them, because I believe it's actually more of a Venn diagram. There's coaching, there's consulting, there's therapy, which I'm not a therapist.
Right.
And I don't want to get into that.
Sometimes we get into it whether we want to or not.
Yeah. And other times there's mentorship. Like a coach and a mentor are two different things as well.
Right,
and sometimes just defining those things is can be hard enough. But I would be willing to bet that someone who wants someone to tell them the answer, we could dig deeper to find. It sounds almost like therapy. Like,
Right.
why don't you trust yourself?
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't ask it that way, because those why questions are a little defensive.
Right.
But it might be something like, sounds to me like maybe there's a reason behind this idea that is it possible that you're not trusting yourself?
Right.
Because I think what I'm seeing is you have amazing intuition, and I bet you know the answer.
Yeah.
And when you lift them up that way, that's different than, well, what do you think the answer is? Those, out of the box coaching questions.
And it's, for me, it's always fun because you dig in, and yes, we get into some therapy when we really, it's like, okay, that's not the direction I was planning on going in this at all. But I think it is really good to challenge them in that situation. Just make sure, if somebody's really needs the answer and they're not looking for that, if they're not looking for the answer within them, it's like, okay, we gotta
we're coaching.
Yeah.
And I mean, in that scenario, we're absolutely consulting. And if you don't have the answer, you need to make sure you are very clear that you don't.
That you don't.
Because now there's just like, oh, this guy's just trying to,
Yeah. Well, and
totally
I think that's one reason why I don't deal exclusively with the coaching industry now like I did before, because a lot of people got into that industry and it's gone to hell. I mean, it's really, there's a lot of people that are promoting stuff that they don't even know what they're talking about. And to me, it's unethical. And so I kind of stepped away from a lot of it. And it comes to where I'm like finding, okay, there's a whole different world that doesn't know the stuff that I've been doing for the last 20 years. And I can help those people in a whole different manner. And they have real businesses and they're actually getting results for their clients. I want to work with that.
Yeah.
That's
why I totally lead with consulting.
Yeah.
Consulting is what I do. It's my first offer.
Yeah.
And it just so happens occasionally they're like, there's a coaching solution for what you think is a consulting problem. That's usually the only way that goes. So yeah, I very rarely lead or offer even coaching. It's like in addition to.
Yep. No, I love it. Awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit. One of the other things I do know you do, and I have not had the opportunity to show up to one, but you're doing these events that have been killing it from what I hear.
Yeah.
And I know you're very proud of them because they've been amazing, and I've heard a ton of people ask questions about it. Tell us a little bit about your events.
Good old-fashioned networking are my events. So I've only been in this space for about a year, a little more than a year. I moved here to DFW from Houston, and when I moved here, I didn't really know anybody. I know my ex-wife, her husband,
right?
My ex-in-laws. But it's also an incredible city, and this is gonna be a home base.
Yeah.
So I wanted to grow a business.
Yeah.
And so I started doing all the networking, and here we are with the Success Champions Network, and it's like, this is really the B2B and networking that doesn't suck, and I love all of those things because I spent almost about 6-8 months, and I'm like, this networking really sucks,
right?
And I was so unhappy with it, and I would go to a couple happy hours where I kind of did, but that's where it all came from.
Yeah,
is going to all of these events, and I drive a big diesel truck and going all over the place, and the cost of fuel, and I'm like,
right, that gets expensive real quick.
Maybe I should I feel like I could probably host my own happy hour, and I bet I could do it even better. That's where the idea came from. And there's this saying that you shouldn't chase butterflies, but instead build a beautiful garden, and the butterflies will come to you.
Right.
And even if they don't, you still have a beautiful garden.
Right.
And I put those two ideas, this idea, I bet I can do it better than these other things, and that part together. And I was like, I'm going to host my own event. And I'd been doing that brand, playing around with that with the old fashioned. And I was like, oh, good old fashioned networking. So what I do different is no speeches, no presentations, no sponsors are going to, ding on the glass and break up the cool vibe so that they can tell you about their thing. No, just good old fashioned networking. And I've played a couple of games there where I try to help people learn how to do networking better, so that the first question after what's your name isn't, so what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, how do we get to make real genuine connections? So that was my goal, and it has exceeded all my expectations. It has become so much fun, and I think it's just gonna keep growing. And every month I have, about 25% of the people that show up have never been there before.
Right.
And that's really exciting.
Yeah. And how many people are you averaging now? Because I know you said that.
The first 3, I was averaging just over 100.
Right.
And I felt that was almost too much. And so I tried to promote it less. And the last couple, I've been in like the 75 to 85 range.
Okay.
And it's been even better. And I would be okay with it actually getting a little smaller when it comes to my ability to interact with my guests.
Right.
But no, it's a big room. A big room is fun for people if you're trying to make lots of connections. But if you're trying to deepen those connections, smaller rooms can be better. So I've gotten to the point where I've kind of let go of assigning any value to me or my event by the number of people that show up.
Right.
I was doing that early on.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, no, just make sure the vibes are good.
Right.
And
well, I mean, it's 75 to 80 people is not a small number either. So, something definitely to be very proud of in that aspect, anyway. And that's where, so like years and years ago, we actually ran events when I lived in Phoenix, and we started the first networking event on the west side of the valley there. We ran the biggest networking event, and our very first time we had like 80 people show up. And people were like, how did you do this? And I was like, well, I spent 10 years building connections, so that's how we did it. But it's sometimes there's a lot of work involved with that, especially as a host.
Well, I'm glad that you see that thing, because I'm not trying to one up you, but here I was about 9 months into a new city, making connections. And all I'd been doing was every time I met with somebody, I make sure I connected with them on LinkedIn, just like we did. And then I was like, I've met a bunch of cool people. Let me invite all the cool people, and ask them to invite any cool people. And I ended up 121 people showed up to my very first event. Awesome. And I was like, wow. And then it was, 108 or something like that for the next one. And that's been the thing, is I invite the people that have already shown up, any new people that I've met. I need to get my CRM a little bit better so I can make it a little more automated. We can talk about that.
We can help you with that.
Maybe you help me out with it. And to where it's just a little more autopilot, but I just keep meeting new cool people, and I invite them, and I ask them to invite cool people. That's how it's gotten to be as big as it was.
That's the way it should be, anyway. And it's cool when you can get that, because you're doing something right, especially not just return people, but they're inviting other people. It's a good feeling to have, knowing, okay, we're making these connections. And you brought up something that I think is really great is, there's a lot of people that focus on how many people you can get in the room. And that's a great, the fact that you had, 100 people show up, that's awesome. Very much so. But I know you're looking at how are we building real connections. And that's one of the things I know for me personally. It's like coming to an event, and, whether it's a conference like this one or going to a networking event like yours, meeting the people there is just the beginning. And it's like, okay, we need to, like, I'm a big one, and you've seen me do it. It's like, okay, get on my calendar. Let's get this locked in right now, because if we plan on doing it next week, it ain't going to happen. And so I'll go through and I'll get those connections immediately into what are we going to do next week? Let's get this rocking right away. And I think a lot of people skip that and either try to, they're trying to pitch their whole thing right there, which we all know is a bad thing. And those are the drive-bys that drive everybody nuts, right? But the other side to it is also, it's such an environment that you're already distracted because there's so much going on. And, for me personally, it's like, okay, no, I want to, virtually we can do a Zoom, or if we're close enough, we can sit down and have coffee. And it's just like you and I having a chat. It's a whole different environment. And I think that's something that more people, it'd be great if they would understand the power of that, because it just makes such a big difference in how the connections work.
I think you can see real quick if somebody's kind of in it for the long game versus just the card swappers that show up to those events. And that's, I don't know, like, I mentioned earlier, your vibe attracts your tribe. I like to, drink old fashions and, hang out at the happy hours. And what I've liked most about my event is that people realize, I don't have to be into bourbon. I don't have to drink old fashions. I just, and it's cool vibes.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things of all of these events are what happens after the event. It's the networking that goes on afterwards. So the ones that show up, they trade their cards and they got to get to the next one, they're going to miss out on all the good stuff anyway. Right. And we all kind of like, all right, no, I guess we'll see you next month for, 26 minutes before you got to dip over to the next one. While I joke, it's the cool kids. But yeah, when we were able to stay a little later, invest more time, get to know people, because in my business, I'm not transactional. I'm building relationships because if I'm going to be working with a business owner, we're going to be connected for at least a few months,
right?
If not, potentially forever. Right. So my sales process is very different. Step one is make a friend.
Yeah.
Make a friend, because if we don't do business together, at least now I got a friend. And if you're not like friends, and I probably wouldn't, I don't want to do business with you. I don't care how green your money is. When we're coaching, consulting type stuff, by the rule, man, I don't work with or for assholes anymore.
Yeah.
That's not my jam. I spent too much time in the military and in corporate that I don't want to do that. So I want to make sure, cool, I'm going to, whenever, Eli, my client, calls and I see his face on my phone, I want to be excited to answer your call, not like, oh, this dude again. Oh, no, I want to be excited to talk to you.
Yep.
It's funny. So that's why I spend that extra time.
It's funny that you bring that up because I think you saw, I just interviewed Tim Berry, and we actually got into this conversation. What I do, we always talk about, like for me, people will, in the sales process, a lot of times people are like, well, can you send me over? Do you have a page on your website or something that has all this information? I'm like, no, we have a conversation. I want to get to know where you are in your business, because I got to first make sure, do I have the right choice for you? Like, do I have the right solution? And I have a lot of different options on that. So maybe it's my coaching program for a year. Maybe it's go buy my book on Amazon, and whichever is fine. I just want to make sure I'm selling you the right thing. But the second part of this whole conversation is we're going to have a good conversation, because I had to make sure I like you first. Because I'm interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing me. And
Absolutely.
If you're a jerk, I ain't taking your money. It's okay. And so it's so funny that you brought that up, because Tim and I just talked about that.
Oh, one of my other favorites is when I feel people trying to, not so much qualify me, but like, they're like, well, why should I work with you to solve this? But lots of people can, solve this type of problem. I'm like, well, first of all, bud, I don't know if I want to work with you.
Yeah.
Like, you just take it away.
Yeah.
And it's not so much like a sales technique, like, oh, I want you to want me kind of. It's real.
Yeah. It's real.
It's super genuine, where I'm like, I've reached just enough level of success in my life that I no longer have to work with or for assholes. Bills are covered.
Right.
But like it's okay. I want to work with people that I like, and that's why I use. I came up with this. I call it the 5 B's of bartering with Mike Nasche. Okay. I love alliteration. By the way,
I think I've heard this before, so definitely share this for this as well.
So the 5 B's of bartering with Mike Nasche are bourbon, barbecue, birdies, bullets, and business referrals.
Yep.
So when I share that with somebody, they know, all right, this guy, he likes to drink his cocktails, he likes to eat the smoked meats, shoots guns, plays golf. I just gave you 4, before I even got to the business referrals, opportunities to say, we might have something in common.
Yeah.
And it's easier for me to remember because it's 5. I can actually use my fingers. They're all B's. So I'm like, oh, wait, whether I, put bullets or, birdies, flip-flop, doesn't matter. I'm going to remember them all. So that's just a little trick for me to get through them. But some people are like, what, do we just become best friends? Yeah. I love all those things.
Yeah.
And other people are like,
well, in Texas, that's not hard.
It's not true. If I'm up in the Northwest or something, they're like, well, I'm a vegan and I drive a Prius, and I'm like, oh, so my diesel truck might and I'm cool. I don't care. It's just now I know if I'm talking to my people. Right. And anyway, I feel very blessed to be able to have a business where I can turn away business that I feel would be just a drain on my energy. Yeah. Not necessarily bad business, but just doesn't lift me up. So.
Well, and the reality is when we're in business, and especially for people that are starting out, so this is kind of where we're talking for you guys right here. When you're first starting out, you're taking on anybody and everybody because you're just trying to get the bills paid. And over time, you'll learn where your stride is and who you can really help. And then you'll get to a level where it's like, okay, no, I just want to work with these specific people that I enjoy working with. And I have found that 100%, if I take on a client that I don't have that feeling for, they're the biggest pain.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time I regret it. And even when I'm like, okay, maybe I need the cash and it's good cash, I should do this, I regret it every single time.
I have two thoughts on that. One, a lot of times we will lower our price in order to try and get that deal done.
Right.
And that's another clue that you probably shouldn't, because they might be a bigger pain in the butt client. The other one is there are some times where I just charge an asshole tax.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it the other day when we were talking about being paid to speak. It's a different price to go to Minot, North Dakota in January than it is to go to Hawaii in January.
Talking about that
and so I'm like, I just throw a number out there where it's like, if they paid me that number, I would no longer care how cold it is because, you know, like I can buy a new, you know, new jacket. But that can be kind of fun at the right time if you need it or whatever. But it's just a different perspective to know that not all business is good business and all clients are good clients.
Right.
Big fan of that.
You know, it's funny that you said that because my first company, I don't know if you knew this, was a web and graphic design agency. I started that back in like 95, 96. And I had one client who decided that I was doing some print, like doing a brochure for him. And he decided that he was going to use his printer, who happened to also be his competitor in business. So I never understood that relationship. But I knew them, I knew their print shop, and they were just a pain to deal with. And I had a printer, worked beautiful, everything had been great. And I was like, okay, this is cheaper and this is a better choice. He's like, I want to give them the business anyway. And I'm like, okay, but here's the deal. I know it's going to be a headache, so I'm going to have to charge you for dealing with stupid people. And he's going back and forth and he's arguing about this whole thing. He's finally like, whatever, just don't, you know, don't stick it to me. I'm like, okay, fine. So I ended up adding like an extra $400 to the bill, and there was a line item dealing with stupid people. And it was hilarious because my partner at the time was his office manager. And so when I sent the invoice over, she's the one that saw it. And she prints it out. She looks at it. She calls me. She goes, you did not mean to actually send this over. And I was like, yep. I already talked to him about it. And he said, go ahead and put it on there. So
there it is.
She prints it out. She writes the check up, takes it over to him so he can go sign it. He looks at it. Only thing out of his words, asshole. Signs it, gives it back to her. She brought the check home.
There you go. I'll do it.
And I've only had to do that once. I've only had that one time. I've had clients I've had to fire, but I've only had one time where I've actually used that. But I have shared that story with other clients. It's like, if you're dealing with people that are a pain, you need to do that and put it as a line item. Don't buffer it into the other stuff. They need to know what they're dealing with and why it's costing them more. And it's great because he actually learned to respect me more when I started doing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we teach people how to treat us, isn't it wild?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. What we'll put up with, we'll tolerate.
All right, so we got 3 final questions here. So
okay.
We're going to start wrapping up on time. The third from the last, is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't talked about?
Oh man, I've got something rumbling around.
Okay.
I don't think we have time to get into it, but it's really hitting me. This is definitely something I want to talk about offline, but I'm gonna tease you with it.
Okay.
So
it'll be a whole different show.
Oh yeah, yes, it'll be a whole different show. Right. I've been growing my brand on LinkedIn, but I realized so many people in this community that I'm in now are wanting to connect on Facebook. They want to get to know who is it that I'm going to be doing business with.
Yeah.
So recently I'm like, I just hit the 5,000 friend mark where I have to like start deleting people that I didn't know. It was weird. So anyway, I get in there and I look at my audience and I'm like, oh, cool. Let me see at the demographics. I'd never looked at this before on Facebook. I've never, I don't really consider myself, well, this might change everything. My audience is 73.6% women.
Yep. It's because you're so dashing.
The lady friends are like, well, stop throwing thirst traps out there, and I'm like, all right, I get it. But I was like, man, I was playfully talking to one of my friends who sells Mary Kay and to another girlfriend who, their audience is women. I was like, I wish I had something to sell women.
Right.
Because I have an audience and they interact.
Right.
I try to talk about all these other things, and it gets little engagement. But if I ask the ladies their opinion on something, it's and it's so much fun. So I was playfully saying, I wish I had something to sell. Maybe I should start selling Mary Kay or whatever. And then the idea was, well, maybe I should coach women.
Yeah.
I was like, I hated the idea because I see the reverse and I'm like, what is that? But I don't know. It was kind of wild because I'm like, I just have the audience for it. So that's something I'm going to be playing with a little more, talking to some coaches, some mentors, some friends, to get their feedback. But
we definitely need to
that
talk
demographic,
about that,
that would be
the majority
interesting.
of my clients are women, actually, and I found that it works
because you're so
great.
dashing.
I fake it well. So I find that women are actually, for me, they've been better to work with for the most part, for the very simple fact that they are more willing to listen.
Nailed it. Like how did I lead this? I said open-minded, humble, and hungry.
Yep.
Dudes have way too much ego.
Exactly.
You get this guy that's built a 7 or 8 figure business. He doesn't want to listen. He thinks he has all the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
So if the women are more open-minded, humble, and hungry, willing to learn, I'm like, I feel like they would be better clients.
Yeah. And a lot of times they are. They quite honestly are. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. So we'll definitely
They don't
talk
feel
more
like
about
they
that.
know everything. So anyway, that was enough just to get that feedback. That was already it.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going in the right
I need
direction.
to have another one-on-one anyway, but we'll talk about that because my majority of my clients have been women for over a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're so much easier to work with. So much more fun.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 final questions then, because we got that one down. Yep. This is the Meet Cool People show.
Meet cool people.
So what does meet cool people mean to you?
Meet cool people. What does meet cool people? I think it sounds like it's just the thing. Meet cool people. What does meet cool people? I don't know. I just like it. It feels amazing to feel seen and to feel heard. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things that we all have. And meeting cool people is figuring out what makes them unique. And then when you do that and you get excited about it, they feel seen and heard in a way that creates a bond. So yeah, I love that. I think just the idea of meeting cool people, everybody's cool in their own way. You might not vibe with them. They might not be your people, but everybody's cool people. You just got to find out what it is that makes them cool. That's what comes to mind.
Awesome. I love it. Very cool. Okay. Final question. This is the easy one. How do people get a hold of you?
Oh man. I'm Mike Nasche. But Nash is spelled like Porsche, S-C-H-E, N-A-S-C-H-E, so that's kind of difficult. So in my rebrand, I use my full name, or I use the initial, it's like Samuel L. Jackson or Michael J. Fox. I do Michael P. Nash because I am the only Michael P. Nash on the planet.
Okay.
My uncle, Michael Nash, is Anthony, so he's A, but Michael P. is what I did. So all my stuff is Michael P. Nasche. So if you type that in there, it's a little easier to find me.
All right. And LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, but that's where I was going with that. So all of my socials, everything uses Michael P. Nash.
Awesome.
So yeah, LinkedIn's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Very cool. Well, we'll definitely
man.
make sure we put that in the show notes. This is awesome, my friend.
Enjoyed it.
All right. And as always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out. Let me know. Take care.
And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.